Got my first coaching job at Central Connecticut State University.
Coming off a promising 1-point loss to a high major opponent, Syracuse, Bryant had the wheels rolling and were set to play the University of New Hampshire on the 1st of December. But on the morning of the 1st, Martelli got a call that he would be the head man with the clipboard.
So the morning of the New Hampshire game, Coach Grasso called me early that morning, said he was having back issues and wasn't sure if he'd be able to coach the game. So immediately I started to get my mind around the fact that I might have to step in and be the head coach for that day, that game, and started to put my notes together and put together my plan. And fortunately we had a couple days of practice and had already set a game plan with the players so they knew what to expect. But then he called me back a little while later and said it was confirmed he wasn't going to be able to make the trip and that I was going to step in for my first time as a head coach.
With Grasso not on the sidelines, Martelli called for his players to step up, and so they did just that. Kiss with the long-range pull-up three. And again, Kiss with a deep three off the assist from Pride. And Christopher Childs with the dagger off the handoff from Green.
For the Bulldogs, great effort by the Wildcats. Coach Martelli getting hugs from his team and his staff. It was a great win. Coach Harrion dapping everybody up.
All right, so everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you're listening to us for the first time, please subscribe to this podcast. We have a returning guest, Phil Martelli Jr. If you guys didn't hear the last time, we'll put that in the description box when he was on last time, but he's a former St. Joe's University basketball player star and also the associate head coach at your Bryant University Bulldogs basketball team. Phil, thanks for always spending time with us. It was a hell of a year, and we're going to kick that around in just a second, but thanks for coming on again.
Rob, it's always a pleasure being with you, my man. I love we talked briefly before we came on, but I love the Orlando Magic, the Orlando Magic paraphernalia there behind you, and a couple good basketballs. It looks back like you got back there too. So.
Yeah, we got Ernie D, we got Marvin Bonds, PC guys.
Yeah.
And I am not sure who the other one is. We'll have to actually. That is John Lenihan, also a PC guy.
Pride of Chester, PA. Also from he's the second best point guard from Chester behind Jameer.
Okay, I didn't even know he was from PA.
John's a great guy, and he was
a hell of a defender.
Oh my God, was he ever? Was he ever?
But yeah, that's the pride of PC. Obviously, we have Jamel Thomas, Ryan Gomes. I'm not going to go through the PC roster. As far as great players, there was many. Rick Bonds coached there. Great coaches there too. But anyways, let's get into the season. So, Bryant had a wonderful season this year. I mean, losing to Wright State in the NCAA tournament game. We'll get into that in just a second. But can you recap this great season that you guys had? It was probably the best season Bryant's had in quite a long time, besides I think back to, I believe it was Max Good coaching the team when they went to that Final Four in Division II.
Yeah, so that was 2005. That team actually just went in the Hall of Fame here. Great group of guys. So yeah, this was the best Division I season for sure. So it's been 14 years, maybe 12 years Division I. By far the best year Division I, and it really started last spring. We had a great year last year, and then we hit COVID at the very end, and really had made it through without any hiccups. Very smooth year. Got off to a fast start. We won a bunch of games. We were playing really well, and then hit COVID, and had a couple guys, 3 rotation guys, 2 starters, and another rotation guy that were in quarantine until the day before the championship game. So we had won the semifinal game by 30 with a mismatch, of most of our guys, or a handful of our guys. And we had a football player we threw in uniform. We had a manager we threw in uniform just to have enough to play the game. Beat Sacred Heart by 30. 2 days later, those guys come out of quarantine and we have to play the next day, and we lost to Mount St. Mary's here. And that night, it was really the start of our championship journey for this season, because Charles Pride and a handful of guys came in that night after the game, after we had lost, and they shot in this gym. And probably doesn't seem like a big deal to people, but they shot on netless rims because Mount St. Mary's had cut down the nets, as you do after you win a championship. And that was the start of it. And it continued with the pieces we were able to add last spring and last summer in recruiting, mostly with the transfer portal. And then this year kind of started. It was very opposite years. This year was more choppy early. We dealt with some things early on in the year. Had 2 guys suspended for 2 games to start the season. We had, over like a 10-day period, we had like 9 or 10 guys test positive for strep throat or the flu. 1 or 2 guys tested positive for both. We were getting ready. We were playing Clemson on a Monday. That Sunday, we practiced here before we went to the airport. We had 3 guys in urgent care at the start of practice and didn't know, are they going to make the trip or not? So we just had that going. And then we were getting on the bus to go to Stony Brook like a week or 2 before Christmas. And we had 2 guys test positive for COVID. So now they were down. We went down to Stony Brook, played a very good Stony Brook team, played them really tough without 2 starters. Came back from that trip. A couple more guys were positive, and we basically had to shut down. We missed our last 2 games at Cornell in Eastern Kentucky at home right before Christmas. So we ended up with a long layoff. And then we came back from Christmas, and everybody was back. We were all able to be back from COVID. And we started off playing at Central Connecticut. We didn't play great, but won. Played Sacred Heart here, won. We went to Wagner. Jared Grouse, our head coach, got COVID, so he didn't coach the game. I coached the game. We lost by 3 in overtime, and really a game that we led the whole way and kind of dominated the whole way, except for the last probably 48 seconds in overtime. But that was kind of the moment where you kind of felt it, like, all right, there's something here. We got something here. And the momentum just carried, and we went from there, and we just kind of rolled. And even then, once we kind of got into that meat of the season and we were winning gets contagious. So we go, the toughest trip in our league, or former league, the Northeast Conference, is at St. Francis, PA, which is just an awful bus trip, a terrible place to have to go. We went on with that game without Peter Kiss, without Hall Elisias, 2 of our better players, and won. And then from there, we had to go really turn around 36 hours later and play at Mount St. Mary's, who was very good, a team we had already beat, who beat us in the championship last year and has given us problems. And we went and won there without those 2 guys. So driving back from that trip, you kind of knew there was something special happening. And then we went and won the championship.
Yeah, so I want to get into this, Phil, because I hope you're not getting sick, first of all.
You know what? My allergies are absolutely crushing me right now.
Yeah, the pollen over here is all over the place, all over the cars.
Yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely crushing me. I've had them before, but never that bad.
Right.
Absolutely crushing me the last week or so.
I see it. I deal with it too. So I definitely get what you're saying. Going into the NEC final, and I want to dive into this. I know this wasn't on your side of the court. Watching it on TV, we saw there was an issue with the Wagner bench and the fans. Obviously, that delayed the game for quite a long time. I know you guys are winning in a blowout, but how did you keep the team together when they had to stop the game? I think it was for like over 30 some odd minutes. And you're up big, but you got to keep the team together. You're going back into the locker room, coming back out. Then there was talk that they were going to go back in again. So can you go through that process of the game of, how you kept the team together in that, craziness?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it's all kind of a blur now.
Right.
I took the guys back to the locker room and basically told them, like, look, just stay ready. Like, we have to finish a game. And at that point, the game was in hand.
Yeah.
we were up pretty big. The game was kind of over. It was just a matter of finishing that 4:37, I think it was.
Right.
So, and when we first went back there, we really didn't know what the situation was going to be. We didn't know if it was going to be, clear the gym and we'll play in front of an empty gym. We didn't know. We just knew it had to go from 4:37 down to 0 at some point in time. So that we knew, but did not know what it was going to look like. So Jared was dealing with the things on the court. I took the guys in the locker room, basically said to them, look, stay loose, stay ready. We're going to have to play a game. So, and the final message when we finally went back out there was like, look, finish it like champions. They've earned that and they deserve that.
So we'll go into this because then we move into Wright State being the first 4 in, playing in Ohio and Dayton. As far as that goes, Peter Kiss in the first half, who performed great throughout the whole season. First half, they kind of had him on a lockdown. I believe he was like 3 for 10 in the first half. Didn't look that great. Came out in the second half, performed way better than he did. I think he finished with 27, 28 points at the end of the game. But Wright State just came out fire. And I mean, they had that kid Tanner Holden. He went off for 37 to complete the game. Was it just that Wright State had it was their night to win that game? Plus the game's in Ohio, it's a short travel for them. Is it just it was really tough to win in that kind of environment with, those guys going off for 37? They had another guy with 22 too. So
well, their travel was so short.
Right.
That because Wright State is in Dayton, that our hotel, we stayed at a Holiday Inn. The NCAA puts you in hotels when you go to the tournament. The hotel that they put us in was right across the street from Wright State's arena.
That's crazy.
We were looking, at their arena, every time we went in and out. But yeah, it was a great experience for our guys. Number one. Mm-hmm. We really had never had anybody that had been to the NCAA tournament. So for those guys to get that experience was huge. Wright State was really good. And, I don't know how to like really find this or look this or really fact check this, but I would bet if you went through the years of the 16 seed playing games, that those were 2 of the better teams that have been in Dayton for those games. Wright State was very good. We were very good. Mm-hmm. We both had similar, had some bumps early and then got rolling. And when we got rolling, so we were really overall resume. Yeah, you're a 16 seed, but if you went more recent resume, okay, these are probably more like 13, 14 seeds. It just so happens that we drew them. So it was, it was a little bit of a road environment. The slow start hurt us. I think Pete was trying to kind of keep himself in check a little bit, and that's not always beneficial to his game. He needs that edge. He needs to play with that swagger and that edge. And they did. I mean, we did a really good job. Their big kid, Grant Basili, was actually transferred to Virginia Tech. He was a real problem. We did a great job on him. Our bigs, Hall Elisias, Greg Calix, and even Luis Hurtado, they did a great job on him, shutting him down. We play our zone and let guys, dare guys to beat us from the high post. And on that night, Tanner Holden got rolling, and it's one of those, in college, you get 1 game. In the NBA, it's a 7-game series. If we play that over a 7-game series and kind of make him take those shots again, I like our chances. But, in college, it's 1 game. So, he was a very, very, very good player, transferring to Ohio State now, hats off to them. They were better than us. And watch, my biggest fear was, you get on that stage, you get a little bit tight. Do we not score? Because that's what we do. We scored 82 points, to score 82 in that game. Unfortunately, we just gave up 93 to a team that got hot and made some shots.
For people that are listening, again, Phil Martelli Jr., associate head coach at Bryant University. Phil, let's go into this. You talked about it briefly at the beginning of the conversation, going from the NEC now to the American East. You're playing a powerhouse like Vermont. I remember TJ Sorrentine. That was back when I was growing up, when he was hitting those big shots, going against Syracuse in the tournament. I'm sure you remember, Vermont
Absolutely.
always being a great team as a 16 seed in the NCAA tournament, even, higher. I think they made it for 13 or 14 seeds sometimes. But regardless of that, how exciting is it to go to the American East playing Vermont, who was the powerhouse of the league every year?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, their run it's funny because, obviously that they've been good for a long time here.
Right.
But then when you see it on paper one day, maybe a month or so ago, it's kind of, just going through some numbers and different things and, making the adjustment to the new league. And to actually write it down and see like regular season champion Vermont, regular season champion Vermont, regular season champion Vermont, regular season champion Vermont, right? I mean, it is like,
Yeah.
it's a dominance that is really incredible. So, hats off to them, hats off to John Becker and his staff and the work that they've done. And, it's not like they've, some of these guys they've gotten have kind of been like unknown, unheralded guys that turn into like monster players. So, it's tough. It's a tough one going there. But it's fun to have something to chase, and have something to say, hey, you know what, like we're going to be the new dog on campus, in town, no pun intended, but we'll be the new dog in town. And, they're the big dog. So we got to go, figure out how to knock them off their perch. And, but really the whole league, I mean, UMBC, obviously, people know what they did when they beat Virginia as a 16 seed. They've been good. New Hampshire's been very solid, and we've played them the last, since we've been here. Billy Herring's a great coach, been doing it a long time. UMass Lowell was in the championship game COVID year 2 years ago. I could go up and down. Albany's got a young coach in Dwayne Killings who do a good job. Binghamton's kind of been up and coming. They've been going through some transition. So, it's good. Maine's got Chris Markwood there now, who will do a great job coming from Boston College. So, to have a new set of challenges. Some teams we've played, a bunch of teams we haven't. We've tried. They just wouldn't play us. So, it's kind of like a new, just a new challenge with, what these teams are about, what do they do. We're going to continue with our style, and our style seems to be in contrast to what most of that conference does, what most of those teams do. So, like anything, we'll try to do what we do better than they do what they do.
It seems like every year there's a lot of change and movement, people moving from different conferences as far as schools. Obviously, you guys are moving from the NEC to the American East. We see in the SEC, obviously, that's a huge league, football, basketball. Oklahoma is going to the SEC along with Texas. And I'm bringing this about is because we're seeing the landscape in college sports changing in general, basketball, football, whatever it may be. Is that worry you a little bit? Because these rivalries are going away, and these big conferences like the SEC, the ACC, they just load up with the best teams. And then, it's hard to get games with these teams because the bigger the conference gets, as far as the ACC and the SEC, they want to play all these teams together. They're talking about getting rid of divisions in the SEC. So is it going to be tougher for teams like Bryant, Vermont, other teams to get a lot of these teams to play? I know you're playing Syracuse next year, and you've played them quite a bit the past few years, but in general, is it going to be harder to draw these teams, these big name teams?
It's been a little bit harder because the conferences are really, what's happening is a lot of the conferences are going to 20 conference games. So we can play with an MTE, a multi-team event. The most games you can play is 31 regular season games. So assuming that everybody's doing an MTE, that's 3 games right there. So now you're down to 28. Then they're doing 20. A lot of ACC and these others are going to 20 conference games. So when they go to 20 conference games, now you're talking about that's 23 games of those 31 that are already set.
Yeah.
And then they all have a challenge or two, right? Like they have the Gavitt games, or they have a Big Ten ACC challenge, or they have a, whatever, Big 12 SEC challenge or Big East, whoever it is. So you add those games in there. So that's another game or two. So now you're down to 4 or 5, maybe 6 games that are available to try and play these teams. Some of them have teams that they play every year. Like Providence plays Rhode Island. Okay, now that's another one. When you go down to Philadelphia, Villanova's playing Temple, and so they have some of those local games that they're playing. So again, knocks it out. So you're really down to like 2 or 3 games with a lot of these teams. And really what's hurt now is the everybody's studying, the net and the metrics that they're using for the NCAA tournament. So they kind of have a pinpoint. My brother's the ops guy at VCU. He does basketball operations at VCU. So he can tell you, like, our schedule is this game right here on November 7th, the opening night, has got to be a team that is between this and this in the net. Right? So maybe it's like we want a team from 175 to 210 in the net. Okay, well, that's 35 teams. So if I'm Bryant and I'm 144 and I call, I'm getting, well, you're too good for that spot. Okay, what about your other spots? Well, you're not good enough for that spot. And because, okay, now the other one, we want 90 to 120. And it's all mathematical because people have gotten smart with this. They're able to look at it and say, we need, and it's projections, right? Like there's no guarantee that we would end up being 140. Like on paper going in, it could look like, hey, we're 140. Well, things could bottom out. We could be 210. Things could go really well. And we could be 67. But
so this is all about, sorry to interrupt, but this is all about the RPI then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And really what it is now is the net. The net is the new version of the RPI.
Okay.
So that's what they use now to kind of calculate a lot of this stuff. And it's kind of a combination of a bunch of different metrics. So when we first got here, obviously they had not been very good. A lot of the phone calls I would make scheduling wise to the bigger schools for these guarantee games, they would say, well, you're not quite good enough. We need a higher net, because if they go play a team that's 330th, that's going to drag their net down. Now they can play 1 or 2 of those, assuming that they're going to play enough higher level. So when you're kind of in the in-between, you're a little bit in purgatory of like, we're not quite good enough to be, it's quad. So we're not quite good enough to be a quad 1 or quad 2 team, but we're not bad enough to be a low quad 3 or a quad 4 team that now teams want to play. Those are like the easy games. All right, let's go get that team on the schedule, because even if we play lousy, we win. Mm-hmm. But then they want those better games to say, even if we lose that game, it's going to boost our net. So like, again, for my brother at VCU, because they're dealing more with it from the at-large standpoint. For us right now, that's not really a realistic thing, the at-large scene. So, but we have to play a certain number of those games monetarily and budget-wise and all that. So it's hard. You got to get stuck. So we do have Syracuse. We do have Cincinnati that will play. We'll try to get 1, maybe 2 more games like that on the schedule, but it's gotten hard. Scheduling has always been a very difficult part of the job. It has gotten way harder at this level, because the flip side too is people at our level don't want to play either. I don't want to put anybody on blast, but I could go through, I could pull up a sheet and tell you, like, Rob, listen to the schools that will not play us. And you'd say, like, why wouldn't they play it? It's a 2-hour bus trip. It's an hour bus trip. It's, but people don't want to play. They'd rather sit at home and say, is there somebody worse out there that we can play? I'm sitting here going, it's June, whatever. Like, what are we waiting for? But, that's just the nature of the beast.
So we talked about this last time you were on here. This is going back to why that Bryant, URI, Providence, Brown, invitational would never work then.
Yeah, I mean, really, at the end of the day, it would probably be the biggest school. So Providence and Rhode Island would have to say we would do it. And, you know, really for Providence, it just doesn't make sense for them.
Right.
You know, they'll go by Sacred Heart. They'll go by, you know, Maine. They'll play those teams. You know, and then they're going to play their Gavitt games, and they're going to play, you know, those higher level games. And, you know, I can't fault them. You know, like at the end of the day, this is about making the NCAA tournament, right?
Well, there was a point where they used to always play Bryant. You know, that was way before you got there.
Yep.
And it was always a gimme game for them.
Yep.
And, you know, no one would be at the game except me and a couple other people at the dunk. And it was kind of a joke of a game. And so I guess that's what you're saying. Then they want to play kind of those teams that they know they can blow out. And that's it.
Yeah, that. And they want to teams, and not just Providence, but all these teams.
Right.
They're looking for that combination. 2 or 3, like the bottom of the net, you know, play those teams, get your win, you know, play your deep bench guys big minutes so they get some time, win the game, and move on. And then they want to play, you know, Providence will play Michigan in the Gavitt games or whoever, you know, and it's a high level. Again, you're trying to win the game, but win or lose, it helps them metrically. It helps them in the net, helps their resume, you know, so that in March their name can get called.
All right. Let's talk about the recruits coming in. I know you guys got 5 incoming recruits coming. Can you talk about them?
Yeah, so we actually have more than that, but we have
Okay.
So the only freshman is Todd Rochelle, lefty guard / wing from New York City. You know, really good feel for how to play, athletic, you know, will fit into our system, playing up and down, playing in the open court. So he's the only freshman. Then we have Chauncey Hawkins, who was like a 5'9" guard, was in our conference at St. Francis, New York, was a first-team All-League player, averaged like 17 or 18 a game for them. Did not play this year, you know, with COVID and everything in New York City, and didn't know, you know, what the deal was going to be. He kind of took the year off and just trained in his back, taking advantage of his COVID extra year. So, you know, he'll play. Strong player, can really score, knows how to play, can play on or off the ball. Very, very good defender. Then Kayvon Kramer is a kid from Delaware who was at Hofstra, played 2 years at Hofstra. Has a crazy story. He tore his ACL in high school, got an infection. He missed over 1,000 days. It was for 1,000 days he didn't play basketball. He was a high-level recruit as a young kid, getting recruited by the likes of Providence and UConn and all that. Then had the ACL injury, ended up at Hofstra. Super, super, super athletic. Long, like super long arms, super athletic. You know, people that followed us, Hall Elisias was in that mold, and he's even a different level of that. And it has a little more to his game than he's been able to show, at least this past year. You know, can shoot a little bit and do some things. So those are 3. Then Doug Eddert. Doug Eddert's from New Jersey, was at St. Peter's. Everybody remembers him. He's the guy with the mustache, you know, from St. Peter's and roaming around. He's definitely our most popular incoming guy. I think every day he's been stopped by somebody to take a picture and people getting out of their cars. So Doug, then Antoine Walker, who started from DC, started his career at Georgetown, was at URI the last couple of years. Super efficient, can do a little bit of everything. You know, for us, he'll be like a hybrid forward, can play inside, can play outside, very athletic as well. You know, expect big things from him. Earl Timberlake is a former like borderline McDonald's All-American from DC. He was at Miami his freshman year, got injured. Was at Memphis last year with that whole deal in Memphis. You know, I was like 6-7 a game for them. Super strong, kind of a, you know, maybe Draymond Greenish, you know, kind of point forward, can really pass, can make plays off the bounce, can probably guard every position that we'll see through the year. So that is, who am I forgetting?
It's quite a group. We'll just say that to say the least.
Tay Moser was at not redshirt, but was at East Carolina this year. We just took him. He got here or committed to us like a week and a half ago, and then was here this week for summer school. Tay is from Texas, about 6'8", can really, really, really shoot it. Really fits us and fits our profile. Tough kid, hard worker, competitive. He's got a very, very bright future for us. Then we had two guys sitting out that joined us mid-year. Miles Latimer started his career at Stony Brook in the America East. Was an all rookie team member, maybe an all league player too as a sophomore. Averaged double figures for a really good team. Went to Bucknell, and then is with us now. And then Sharif Kenny, who was at LaSalle, was the sixth man of the year in the A-10 2 years ago, and transferred to us mid-year. Both are very talented guys, and in their short window, short time frame with us, maybe 5-6 months now, have given us a lot to be excited about.
Using the transfer portal, but when you use that, is it going to be tough to keep like guys together with the program? Because it seems like even with you guys are from all over the place. Some guys have, this team, they sat out, the COVID year, all this stuff. It seems like everybody's, last year could be a whole different team from this year.
The hard piece is I've always been about, building a program. That's always been important to me, and it's hard now. But I will say, like, my time in the D League, before it was the G League, the D League, I didn't know it at the time, but it has really kind of prepared me for this period in college basketball because of the coming and the going, the transactional nature of just what goes on with guys, wanting to leave, wanting to stay, has really helped. And so far we've been a positive in the transfer portal. There's other programs that have been a negative, and maybe that'll flip at some point in time. But we try to attract the right type of guys that fit us, and are competitive. They work really hard, and we're upfront with that. Like, look, if you're going to come here, you're going to work really hard, and you better be ready to compete, or you're not going to play. And to the credit of the guys we've brought in over the last 4 years, almost all of them have understood that, have seen their games grow, because that's the other thing now is, like, early on we were selling guys a dream, hey, we're going to get good. We're telling you, yeah, we might not be good now, but this is what it's going to look like. Well, now we have that. Now we can bring a transfer in, sit him down and say, look what Peter Kiss's numbers went from 6 a game at Rutgers to 26 a game to leading the NCAA in scoring. Look at Charles Pride, the jump that he's made since he's been here. Look at Luis Hurtado, the jumps that he made. Look at Greg Calix. And go down the list, Adam Melita, like, just keep going down and say, they all made a jump. 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 So if you're a guy, like Earl Timberlake, hey, it hasn't worked out at your first 2 places, or Sharif Kenny, hey, it didn't work out at LaSalle. Okay, come on. We'll give you an opportunity. Now you got to take you got to take hold of it, and take advantage of the opportunity and say, all right, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to be in the gym. I'm going to get my extra shots up. I'm going to do all these things. But trust that we're going to put you in that position that, you can have the best year of your life. And really, I think that's our goal, and our mission, with all these guys is we want them to have the best individual basketball year of their life and team basketball year of their life, And I think the guys on this past year's team would tell you that they did. And now the goal is to make sure that these next group of guys has the same thing.
As we move down to the last few questions, I want to talk about NIL. Are you a fan of this? And, you are a college athlete in general. So obviously, we've talked about throughout the whole interview about how college basketball has changed, whether it's, NIL, transfer portal in general. A lot of things have changed. So can you talk about the NIL? Are you a fan of it? And I guess, in your opinion.
I am a fan of it for sure. I think it's fair for these players that they can, if there's a market out there for them and they can capitalize on it, then great. I don't think it should interfere with, them working on their game and getting better and being part of the team and all those things. So, I do think there has to be a balance. And I don't know at the highest levels right now. I think there's some, guys are getting announced, hey, this huge deal, and now they're walking in the locker room, and it's like people looking at them side-eyed, like, why is he getting that deal? I'm sure there's people dealing with that. But I do think that it's fair that these kids, have an opportunity. There's some really smart kids out there that have, whether it's taking advantage of social media or just because of their status as, the quarterback of some marquee team or the best player of some marquee team, in college basketball that, can go and find a market for themselves. So, I think as long as it's not interfering with, your responsibilities and, you're not, I worry about some of these younger kids coming up, these high school kids and things, because people are starting to dip into that a little bit. Excuse me.
No worries. Take a drink, man. We can edit this. You're good.
There's younger kids coming up that I worry about them sometimes, that if it becomes like, well, I can just go make this money, but I'm not going to go work out. I'm not going to go play, how they handle that. And
Yeah.
I do think, like anything, there's going to be success stories with this NIL stuff that we'll be able to say, man, that was great because look at this guy. Look at what Rob got and look where he went. There's going to be sad stories too. There's going to be stories of guys that, were hyped up or had these huge followings and were able, as a young kid, they were able to get all of this. And then by 19, they were fizzled. Their game was done, and they were kind of washed up as a 19-year-old. But that happens in college basketball anyway. It happens in sports anyway, right? Like the best 18-year-old isn't always the best 19. I tell my sixth grade son right now, the kid right now that's the best sixth grader, when you guys come back for AU next spring, like he's not going to be the best seventh grader. And it's not about being the best sixth grader or seventh grader. Not about being the best 18-year-old or 19-year-old. It's how far can you go? Flip on the finals last night, right? And Steph Curry, unheralded guy. Klay Thompson, nobody really knew him, before this Warrior stuff. Derek White for the Celtics was a Division II player. Like you go down the line and you go like, yeah, there's just, and shoot, I was with the Sixers the year they traded for the first pick. That was the year I was in the D-League. And all they ever talked about was Markelle Fultz and Lonzo Ball. Jason Tatum's name was never mentioned.
Right.
Never. Yeah. Never mentioned. And people will probably dispute that, but the things that I was a part of, Jason Tatum's name was never mentioned. Well, if you could redo that, who would be the number one pick? Like, it's not even close, So it's not about that. It's not about what the NIL stuff is. So that's the balance, is like, okay, if you're a real player, you'll find a way to, I'm going to make this money. This is great. Put some money in your pocket, do something. But I got to get in the gym. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to be competitive. And it's what makes the great NBA players great, right? Like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Like those guys don't need to work out anymore. Like LeBron James doesn't need to work out. He's a billionaire now. Like he could say, I'm going to just become the sloppiest version of myself. He'd never be a slob, but he could say, I'm just going to be the sloppiest version of myself. And he'd go play another 5, 6, 7 years if he wanted. But there's a fire that burns in those guys to say, I'm going to be the greatest. I'm going to be, a champion again. I'm going to do all these things, even when they've made all this money. Hopefully these young guys and girls that are getting these NIL deals the majority of them can find that same fire.
If you have a Peter Kiss that's a freshman and he's lighting it up, just say, and he's at Bryant, and then someone gets in his head, one of these, big collectives at Florida, Ohio State, and they say, hey, we'll give you $1 million. You come over here. That's where I'm worried about is going to be a problem for the smaller schools like Bryant, like Vermont, like schools in the conference.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's just a reality of it, at this point in time, and, I look at it and say you could try to fight it, or you could say, look, I said to a friend of mine a couple of years ago that's at this level, he was back and forth on a kid. And I said, well, if that kid was a grad transfer and he had 1 or 2 years, you'd take him. Right. So like, he's a freshman, you're taking him. You may only have him for 1 or 2 years, but you know he's really good. Then, let him come and watch. Like my pitch, if it were you, I'd say to you, Rob, like, okay, then come be that guy. Because if you're that guy, then we're pretty good. If you're as good as you think you are and you can go do this and do that, then go ahead.
Well, I mean, if you're a good coach and, you have a good camaraderie with the team and the team's got good chemistry, maybe you want to stay. Maybe why go to
this? I think, I think for a lot of guys, because, at the end of the day, this thing's about production. For guys that want to play at the next level, you got to go produce. Doesn't matter if you're at Bryant, doesn't matter if you're at Rhode Island, Providence, if you're at Duke, whatever. You have to go produce, So, why did Peter Kiss have, a large number of NBA tryouts and NBA teams come through to watch him? Because he was producing, and winning. So if you produce and win, they're going to find you. There's no secrets anymore. There's no like, hey, there's some monster playing at some, no-name school in the middle of nowhere. Like, no, everybody knows who everybody is. They know where the good players are. Really doesn't matter. You don't have to be at the highest of the high levels to be found. So, yeah, you come. It's a great place to go to school. It's a great place to, be a part of something. And I do. I think a lot of guys are realizing that the transferring up is not always the greatest option. You see that the numbers get cut. So if you're a guy that, hey, I'm at a winning program in the America East, I'm averaging 15 a game. Yeah, you can go transfer to the Big East. But are you okay if you average 6 a game, and play, 17 minutes instead of 34 minutes? Those are decisions you have to make.
Last thing, you guys have some basketball camps coming up. If you want to do a little promo for that, I know there's some in July and August,
Yep.
just for the viewers that live in the Rhode Island area.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're hopefully I won't mess these dates up, but June 27th to July 1st. It's a Monday to a Friday. We have camp that's basically like kindergarten through, high school age kids. Then we have one July 4th week, a short one, the 5th to the 8th, I believe that one is. So that'll be a 4-day, same deal. That's younger because of some NCAA rules. That one has to be like kindergarten through 6th grade, or rising 7th grade. And then the first week of August, I believe it's the 1st to the 5th. We have camp that week as well. Would love to have as many of the youth as we can get, the Rhode Island youth. It's a great basketball state. I've seen it from what we've done here. I've seen it, with my son playing, travel ball and AAU ball and all that, getting around in these different towns. There's some good basketball and some good young players out there. So,
Phil, does that mean
those camps are for all skill levels, beginners, advanced kids? We kind of break it up and do stuff with everybody. So, it's a lot of fun.
Phil, does that mean your son's going to be over there? Little Phil's going to be over there dominating everybody?
He won't be dominating, but he'll be here, hopefully learning something and getting better. My daughter's a couple years younger than him. She'll be here. My 4-year-old Nate, he'll be running around, probably half participating and half running things. So I think the website for that is jaredcrossobasketballcamps.com. And you can find them through the BryantBulldogs.com website too.
Let's end with that. Again, Phil Martelli Jr., Bryant University, Associate Head Coach, BryantBulldogs.com. Definitely check it out and check out the basketball camps if you're in the New England area on the website too. Phil, thanks so much for always coming on. Greatly appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rob. Anytime. It's always great spending time with you.